I recently traveled to Switzerland, the most expensive country in the world, with the most insane scenery, mountains, crystal clear blue lakes, Rolexes, and much, much more. I wanted to see, how far does $100 really get you in 2023 in Switzerland? That means food, accommodation, transport, activities, and everything in between. Let's be honest, Switzerland isn't the most budget-friendly place to travel, but I think you'll be pretty shocked about a few of the accessible things that this country has to offer. Let me start from the beginning. This trip only lasted a week, but that was actually a significant amount of time to visit 3 of the major cities: Geneva, Bern, and Zurich. We even had time to visit the mountainous regions and even the Swiss countryside. The first thing to mention is that we came at the beginning of October, which is assumingly just before the winter season starts, or the off-season. We bought our tickets 1 month beforehand, and it came to a total of €100 per person. That was the price for a return flight from Porto, Portugal. We flew into Geneva, and this was our first night checking into our hotel, which cost 110 Swiss franc a night. This pretty much is the whole room. Definitely not modern. Got a mirror here, a heater with a nice piece of old chewing gum on it. That part is pretty much the bedroom, and then you've got, it's not even a bathroom, the bathroom is shared. We've got a sink, a little chest of drawers up there. There's no aircon. It's just a little ventilator that you can plug in. Let me show you the bathroom. The one positive thing is that the bathroom is in front of our room. This is the bathroom. It's clean, it has everything that you need. Nothing's new in here. Okay, so I knew that Switzerland was expensive, but I didn't realize how expensive, like really expensive, it was gonna be. So this was the cheapest room that we could find available on all of the sites. This really set the bar. I don't think that you can find anything cheaper other than a shared dorm room in a hostel. But technically, as we are 2 people, if you split the total, it would only be €55 a night. But still, the standards of this room, I was feeling very skeptical if $100 was really gonna get us a good place to sleep. Just from walking around Geneva for 1 day, you can tell how much money people like to spend on expensive things. Mainly watches. I've never seen a city centre high street with so many expensive watches. Anyway, there are things that you don't need to spend money on. Just wandering the city was actually really nice. It was so beautiful walking down to the lake and seeing the snowy mountain peaks, and also really impressive to see how clear the water is in the middle of the city. In Switzerland, they're big on cycling, so you'll see a lot of cycle lanes throughout the whole city. This is also a really great, fun and affordable activity to do while you're in Zurich. Now moving on to one of the biggest expenses. This is where Switzerland is not going to be cutting any slack. I found the food prices to be super expensive, and it would definitely be eating up a lot of your budget. Most of the time, we were trying to save money by buying breakfast and lunch in the supermarket, because we quickly realized that eating out will cost around 35 to 50 Swiss francs per person. Obviously, depending on what you buy and where you go. On the other hand, we did find that the selection of baked goods in the supermarkets were amazing. So many freshly baked pastries, and also so many options for freshly made sandwiches. Some of them were still even warm. Our options for breakfast today are from the supermarket. So we got for breakfast 2 warm baguettes with tomato and mozzarella, and then 2 cold sandwiches, 2 croissants, and then 2 coffees. All of this for 40 Swiss franc. Okay, for example, my coffee, €4. The croissants, €2.50 each from the supermarket, which is always the cheapest option. I tried to find the cheapest option for lunch in a restaurant, but I wanted the lunch to consist of hot, freshly made food. This led me to a self-service rooftop restaurant, but yet again in the supermarket. If you wanted anything more fancy than this, you would be spending around 30 to 40 euros per person. This is why we stuck to mostly buying food from the supermarket. I think by cutting your costs on food, you'd save a lot of money while traveling in Switzerland. Eating out and food in general is 100% one of the biggest cost factors. Just finding anywhere to eat lunch, like a good plate of lunch with hot food and rice, other than sandwiches, it's going to be expensive. So we've just found a restaurant, a rooftop restaurant actually, which is crazy because it's from the supermarket. It's from the Co-op supermarket brand from Switzerland. So we went for the self-service option, which is 2 big plates, which cost 15 Swiss franc, or like $15, $16. 2 Coke Zeros, which are per Coke Zero, it's like $3.65, and then a chocolate and banana crepe for $9. So in total, this cost me 46 Swiss francs, so around $50. $50 for a supermarket lunch is insane. It's quite impressive though that everybody in the kitchen was wearing like a proper chef's outfit with the hat on in a supermarket restaurant. That's quite impressive. Still, there was loads of options, amazing view of the lake and the mountains. But for 46 Swiss franc for a supermarket lunch, probably the cheapest option you can get, is still ridiculous. The next thing is the transportation. So we decided to rent a car in Geneva as our plan was to road trip around the country. We actually got really lucky because we got a free upgrade when we came to pick up the rental car. This was such a nice surprise. We ended up using the company Avis. We originally wanted to rent a mid-size VW, but we ended up with a Polestar 2. We chose a VW because it was one of the cheapest cars that they had available. The total came to around 800 euros with insurance, and this was for an 8-day trip. This was our first time renting an electric car, and we were really pleasantly surprised with the experience. When the car is fully charged, you have a range of 487 kilometers, or around a full day of driving, and there was never a shortage of charging points. To fully charge the car, it cost around 40 Swiss francs, or 42 euros. So comparing this to how much money we would have spent on petrol, I think it was a win. Especially when driving at high altitudes through the mountains, a normal car would use a lot more petrol. In total, for renting the car for 8 days, we spent approximately 100 euros a day. It's expensive, but I think that's pretty good. And I just highly recommend renting a car for various reasons. Firstly, Switzerland is a relatively small country, so you'll be able to explore so much in a relatively short amount of time. Secondly, they have great roads and infrastructure to drive around the country. It's also another bonus that when you rent a car in Switzerland, you don't have to pay for the road tax. So you don't have to pay for any of the tolls. The third thing is that Switzerland is just so scenic. Everywhere you turn, there's a beautiful view in front of you. And driving a car gives you so much more freedom to stop whenever you want. Also, because 70% of the country is mountainous, you'd really be missing out on some of the most breathtaking views if you don't have a car. The only downside that I can think when renting a car is parking. Parking is another extra expense that I feel like a lot of people forget about. And in Switzerland, it is not cheap. Because we had an electric car, we would normally find the bigger underground parking lots. This was actually super convenient because normally they had fast chargers available. So when we came back, after a few hours wandering around the city, the car would be fully charged. On average, we would spend around 20 to 25 Swiss franc for parking. And this was just like a few hours. Also, we never found free parking, even in small villages. But not to worry if you're not renting a car. Here, the public transport is some of the best in the world, offering routes to pretty much everywhere in Switzerland. It's said Switzerland has one of the best developed public transport networks in the world. Almost any part of the country can be reached by bus or by train, even remote mountain areas. And Switzerland is one of the countries where people use public transport the most, especially the train. But how much is public transport in the major cities? When we were exploring Zurich, we would use the trams. One single ticket for one zone would cost $4.40. This was the ticket that we bought, but we made a mistake. You can actually buy a day pass that costs $8.60. You can also get a 6-day pass that costs $25.60. The map is huge and the trains are really frequent, super clean, and kind of cute, old, vintage looking. Really make sure you buy a ticket because when you get fined, it will cost you 100 Swiss francs. When we were in Zurich, we wanted to find some interesting things to do. We found that the Lindt Chocolate Museum was so worth it. Per person, it only cost 15 Swiss francs for the museum and the guided tour, not including all the free chocolate. I'm not gonna lie, this had to be one of the best museums I have ever been to. It wasn't like a traditional museum. It was very immersive, with every room really well laid out, and the storytelling through the audio remote made it so much more interesting. The first part was showing how chocolate is made, starting from the cocoa bean, and then it leads you through to the other room, giving you a detailed explanation of the whole history of chocolate, and also explaining the story of Lindt. Then you had the best part, which was seeing the process of how they make the Lindt chocolate in the factory. There were literally 3 different flavored chocolate fountains that were unlimited. Let me tell you, this chocolate was so good. Just in front, they had another part with automatic machines that were dispensing hard chocolate with a bunch of different flavors. If that already wasn't enough free chocolate, the next room was definitely my favorite. There was pretty much every flavor of the delicious Lindt chocolate balls. You could take as many as you wanted. We got the chance to go to the FIFA Museum, which is also located in the city center. That costed 24 Swiss franc per person. To be honest, I'm not super interested in football, but yet again, the museum was really interesting with a lot of engaging features and really well laid out displays. I didn't get bored at all. After Zurich, we then headed up to the northeast mountainous mountainous part of Switzerland, close to the German border. This is where I feel like you really get to see the true parts of Switzerland. This was 100% one of my favorite days. We found this hike online called Sakaluka. I know I'm saying that wrong. To be honest, we just picked one at random that wasn't going to be too long of a hike. To get there, you have to take a cable car, which costs 36 Swiss franc per person. You even have to pay for your dog, which would cost 10 Swiss franc. The interesting thing is that the Swiss are so honest, so there's no one there to attend you. You just buy your own ticket on the self-service machine. The cable car comes really often, but I was shocked. It literally flew us up the mountain in about 5 minutes. It was so fast, but it was really steep. At one point, I did kind of feel a bit scared. There's literally no other option for you to get here. You have to take the cable car. It's like taking a shortcut to the top of the mountain and then you start the hike. Let me just say, I have never in my life been on such a breathtaking hike. I wanted to take pictures and videos every 5 minutes. It was incredible. In my opinion, when you come to Switzerland, you have to do at least one hike. The views are incomparable to anything you've ever seen. I felt like I was in a Lord of the Rings movie. We didn't want anything too intense. We literally just wanted a day hike, and this route was perfect because it only was a round trip of around 4 hours. We didn't come prepared to do a longer than a day hike, but there was the option if you wanted to do that. On our way back, we managed to find cheaper accommodation by looking on the outskirts of the city. We found this modern studio apartment for only 90 Swiss franc a night.
This is a trick now that we're going to start doing, is actually looking for accommodation, places to stay just a little bit out of the city, especially if you're renting a car. I think you can do that because of you obviously have your transportation. But if you just take a bit more time to look on Booking, on Airbnb, even on Google, it shows the hotels in the nearby areas. On the outskirts of the city, you'll be able to find something like this. And even if you're not renting a car, there's transportation, there's public transport that you can take into the city anyway. So if you want to save on money in Switzerland, you need to find a place on the outskirts. I think we're not even 20 minutes from town. And clearly, as you can see, this place is way better than the place that we stayed at last night. Finding this in Switzerland, it is possible. We actually inquired about the parking, how much parking overnight would be, because obviously we have the car. We found out that in this region, in this neighborhood, we could park the car overnight from 8 o'clock at night until 9 in the morning. So that was perfect because the overnight parking fee here was, I think, 26 Swiss franc. So all in all, this worked out really, really well, way better than last night. And we're definitely going to do this more, looking kind of on the outskirts of the cities for a better place to stay and save money. It's a win-win.
In the end, does $100 get you far in Switzerland? To be truthful, it depends. Pretty much every hotel that we stayed at cost us more than $100 a night. And this is considering that we were always looking for the cheapest option, but we were also splitting it between 2 people. The food in the supermarkets and even the fast food options, even though there aren't many, are still going to cost you around 40 to 50 euros for 2 people. When it came to transport, obviously we rented a car which cost us around 100 euros a day. But you do have the other options, which are trains and buses. I have heard that the trains in Switzerland can be quite expensive as well. But when it came to activities and excursions, I feel like Switzerland has so much to offer with great outdoor scenery, activities, hiking, swimming in lakes, mountain roller coasters, and so much more. Overall, do I think it's worth traveling to Switzerland? 100% yes. Obviously, it's not the most budget-friendly country I've ever been to, but all in all, this country can't compete with others. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your guys' opinions and if you have any other video suggestions. All right, I'll see you in my next one.